Okay, my sister's gone, and I'm kind of glad about that. My mum also came over for the weekend, and she was annoying me more than ever. Just, when you don't like someone, and then they just wind you up, and then suddenly everything they say just winds you up, and it's just like saying, "Oh, I'm going to cook you breakfast. I've got eggs and bacon, and no, I've got eggs and sausage, and I can make you breakfast," and then you don't go out to breakfast, and then you come down to breakfast because she's made it for you, and she's literally just opened a tin of your beans and just lose the whole tin rather than use this half empty that was already in the fridge. No, she just went straight for the whole tin, rather than using the one that needed to be used up in the fridge, and then just pours quarter of tin of beans on everyone's plate. There's four of us, and then sticks a sausage on it, and it's like, here's your breakfast. It's like, just beans on sausage, and then it's like, oh, I thought you said you had eggs. Oh no, yeah, you had eggs, and then I realized you only had one. Yeah, I know I only have one. That's why when you said you had eggs, I thought, oh, I don't know, she's just so winding me up. But anyway, and then my sister wanted to watch Beef pretty much throughout the whole day, even though she knew that I didn't want to watch it because I didn't want to watch it yesterday, and ended up going to bed at like 8 o'clock because she wanted to watch Beef. I don't know. Her boyfriend, I do like her boyfriend, but yeah, he has no ability to care about my religion. I was trying to talk about it, and he was just like, "Oh, don't, don't force me to believe anything that I don't want to believe." And maybe it's just a fair point to make, but at the same time, it, if you're actually talking to Christ, it's different. But anyway, I don't think he has ability. I don't think he has an interest in my religion, but neither does Sophie. So that's just how it is. But anyway, when I was when they were watching Beef, I thought I'm going to. There's something that I was writing a biblical Bible, and it's just in the last few weeks, I guess I've mentioned about how there's a lot of people talking about a new gospel being preached, and this Bible that I kind of rewrit was something that I done back in 2000. I think I actually did in 2016, and then I think I made lots of edited. I made it a lot bigger and longer in 2019. And I haven't really gone over it recently. I don't know if there's much changes. I know back in 2019, I wasn't aware of the sort of population reduction that I felt needed to happen, and so I'm not too sure if it's got everything that needs to be said. But at the same time, I feel like maybe what I've written is probably more along the lines of what people need to hear, because I don't think people need to hear that there needs to be a population reduction. But anyway, yeah, there is some things that I haven't realized, which is that I was going through the stories, but I didn't really like specifically say these are all the stories from Genesis, these are all the stories. No, I didn't think I put them in order. I was kind of just going through the stories and going one by one, and yeah, so I edited it. I reordered it now so that um, I had the Old Testament before. I just had all the pages all in one, whereas now I've actually categorized it. So I've got the overall characters, and I've got Genesis and that books 2 to 5. So I've kind of actually looked a little bit more. So I've just gone through all this because I've talked about all the different characters, and I just had them before. I just had them in a sort of in an order, but not necessarily in the correct order. And so I've just gone to typed all the names and tried to make sure that they are actually in the correct order, and most of them were. But it kind of occurred to me that the Bible seems to be like, okay, Genesis is obviously the main one, and that's obviously where the main stories came from, and it's obviously the earlier stages is talking about how the world got here, and how the first generation of people. Now it's all nonsense, it's all bullshit, and when I was doing this, I was just doing I'm bored. I know I'm Christ. I know I'm linking to things. So let's just see what I link to. I was kind of doing it more out of curiosity and more out of trying to teach myself something. So, I don't know if people are going to actually want to read it, or if it's, I don't know. I think there is definitely a lot of things you can learn from it. But I realized that the parts that I've talked about Israel are probably not, Israel to me was just one character. But I realized that Israel is actually mentioned 2,344 times in the Bible. So that's a long loss. Jesus is only mentioned 1,300 and something times in the Bible. So this is twice as much as Jesus. And I've said Israel is a woman, and she kind of represents a group. She represents me, but at the same time, if you actually look at Genesis, and in Genesis, Israel is a guy named Jacob who got his name changed to Israel, and and he owned a bunch of land which they believed is this sort of section and stuff. And I've not really talked about that, I don't think. Like, I mean, I have, but I feel like I've said that I think Israel represents a woman, but at the same time, if you read at Genesis, if you read the first few books, it's so basically I'm kind of just trying to understand the Bible a little bit better. So how I would understand it is that Genesis seems to be just like the first. If there was to be like an Old and New Testament in the Old Testament, I would say Genesis would be like the Old Testament, the first book, and then books, I don't know what it is, but books 2 to 5, so that's Exodus, and then there's a 2 or 3 others. I can't remember the names of them, but yeah, there's like a second part which is mostly the follow-on to Genesis. So it's like somewhat a group of people wrote Genesis, tried to make up fictional stories that their fathers have told them. And I don't believe any of that. I don't think I don't think Abraham or Israel, or I don't think any of these are real people. And if you read the book, God told this, God told this. It's no different from YouTubers on YouTube right now that are going like, God told me this, God told me this. What these books are when it comes to Israel is exactly the same as what these Christian preachers on YouTube are doing, making out that God is saying this, God is saying that, when really God is saying none of it. And so when I talk about Israel, I'm going to put it in a different order. So I'm going to have in the reorder of the books. I'm thinking about a film that I want to make where I take these different stories and I show my interpretation of it. But it's always taking the general bulk of the story, the general line of the story. So it's not going into detail and like God said this, God said that, God said, because that's none of that is true. Now, I never said any, all the nonsense in the Bible. I never said any of those things. I'd never said I'm going to punish Israel. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that to this person. This is, everything in it is nonsense in the Old Testament. But if you take the general overall sort of storyline and convert that, you can convert it in. So Israel does have a general storyline. Israel was supposed to be a guy who called himself Jacob, and then he changed his name to Israel, and he had kids. He had 12 sons, and the sons represented different tribes. Well, I would take that story and say that Dala had a son, and that son had kids in 12 different tribes. So a lot more than 12 kids. He would have had probably 100 or something, or maybe even more, 150. He was having sex with a lot of different tribes, or 12 different tribes specifically, but each tribe would have had 30, 40 people in it. And I don't know, but I feel like he was a massive player. So but yeah, so that had it's completely changing it. And I don't know if I make that clear in the I'm dyslexic. I hate books. I hate writing. I hate nothing. I hate doing this. I'm just doing it because I've got nothing else to do. And I would much rather do it with some people that can help me. And so, yeah, if I'm going to get onto Big Brother, if I'm going to promote my religion, I want this book to get out in the world, but I also want to go over it and make sure that I'm saying stuff right. Because I just looked at the page of the history of Israel, and I don't know if I really got. I mean, I just took some parts of the Genesis, and I think I was explaining it in a way, but it kind of made me, when I was reading this, I was thinking, I don't even want to have any connection with this. I never said to Abraham, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you. And the thing just, there's stuff in the Bible that just, it's got nothing to do with me, and it's absolutely insane to think that God said this, and it kind of annoyed me. I was saying how Eve gave the apple of knowledge, and the Bible is. I was telling my sister's boyfriend that the Bible is actually just a way of getting men to control women by putting them down. There's a lot of that in there, and stuff. And it's like, oh, but Adam wasn't trying to control Eve, and it's just like, this book wasn't written for Adam and Eve. This book was written for thousands of people. And he was like, no, this is the story of Adam and Eve. And it's like, but the Adam and Eve story isn't real. And he wasn't getting that. And it's just like, how can you not get that? How can you not understand that when it's saying it's putting down women, it's not telling Adam to put down Eve. No, this story is not true. And it's just like, well, that's just your belief. And it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's completely changing it. And I don't know if I make that clear in the I'm dyslexic. I hate books. I hate writing. I hate nothing. I don't even want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't want to have any connection with this. I don't Seriously, I really I hate this book. I hate how people see it as the truth and how people see it as real and stuff. And I absolutely hate it. And then I'm just thinking, why am I looking at it? But then I'm thinking that I kind of need to, because so many people around the world take it seriously. You know, if people saw this book as the Bible as just a bunch of rubbish, then I would be like, well, obviously it's a bunch of rubbish. But because so many people around the world take it seriously, I feel like I have to try and take it seriously. And trying to take a book that's full of rubbish seriously, you know, I mean, if I want to rewrite it and retell it, I want to do that, but I also want to make it bloody well clear that I don't believe Abraham or Moses or any of these people. I don't believe that any of them are real. And to read these books and think that I've said all this nonsense to these people is just, God does not talk like that. Does not does you know? I did not give Israel the land. I did not give anything to anyone. I did not promise anything to Abraham. I don't believe he's a real person. And but yeah, I am. It's a bit frustrating because on one hand I'm like I want to promote it and I want to tell a different story of what it means. But on the other hand, you know, Israel is such a main character, and I do think it's talking about a woman, but then a huge parts of it aren't talking about a woman. You know, it's talking about, oh, and the Israelites said this, and you have to go forth to tell the Israelites to do this, tell the Israelites to do that, and it's just like, yeah, no, everything in regards to telling the Israelites things is just bullshit, and it's just crap. But yeah, so I don't really know how to handle it. I would like to talk to someone about how to handle this because I like, there's a lot of things that I can teach people through these stories. But I also want to make it bloody well clear that I never said none of this shit to these people because these people weren't real.